Zimbabweans unite to ease Cyclone Idai's effects, as emergency workers describe the flooding as the region's most destructive in 20 years. The Nigerian Navy hosts a maritime exercise designed to improve security and regional cooperation among the Gulf of Guinea nations. And artwork on African mysticism is showcased at a London gallery. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Millions of people are at risk across Mozambique, Zimbabwe and Malawi following the devastation left by the cyclone Idai. Massive flooding has triggered a major humanitarian crisis across the region. Both Mozambique and Zimbabwe have declared states of emergency in some areas. In Zimbabwe, as President Emerson Mnangagwa visits some of the worst affected areas on Wednesday, grieving families in the country's east rushed to bury their dead because the cyclone has knocked out power and stopped mortuaries from functioning. Meanwhile, many Zimbabweans have started raising funds and donating goods to help those affected by Cyclone Idai. The Red Cross says the storm has killed more than 100 people in Zimbabwe, but many others are still missing. Columbus Mavunga in Harare starts our coverage.
This church has been turned into a donation center meant to help those affected by the deadly Cyclone Idai. Volunteers receive donations, food, water, blankets and clothes which are picked up for shipment to eastern Zimbabwe. This 43-year-old man is from the devastated region. He says a former classmate and neighbor, along with the neighbor's wife and 3 children, were killed when a hill collapsed on them while they slept.
But my elder brother and our family survived. When they saw that's what was about to happen, they quickly escaped. I want to say that the food supplies there and where to stay are a challenge, or even where to buy food. There is nowhere they can buy because the shops are at the steep slopes, so they were destroyed too. I feel quite relieved to be seeing these efforts.
The relief efforts are being coordinated by organizations such as Ignite Youth, which have been on social media asking Zimbabweans to provide relief to cyclone victims.
We plan to give everything that has been collected here to all the victims that have been affected by Cyclone Idai, because we feel that this is the role that we have to play as young people as well, to give back, to help where we can.
Down the road at the Zimbabwe Red Cross, the aid organization has deployed teams to ensure that the injured get medical treatment and that communities have clean drinking water.
Accessibility has been one of the biggest challenges, considering it's in the eastern and mountainous area, and there's been a serious landslides, damaged roads, and accessibility is one of the worst situations.
Kutadzaushe says nearly 100 people have been confirmed dead in the cyclone, with up to 250 others currently missing and up to 600 people displaced from their homes. The Zimbabwe government says it has deployed army engineers to ensure that damaged roads and bridges are repaired so that assistance can reach those who need help. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
Now to Mozambique, where 3 days of mourning began Wednesday as residents of the port city of Beira, a low-lying coastal city of 500,000 people, are coping with the devastation caused by Cyclone Idai. Many of the town's buildings have been ripped from their foundations and covered by flood water. Cyclone Idai slammed Beira last Thursday with 170 kilometers per hour winds, flattening structures and sending people fleeing for their lives. The number of people killed in Mozambique has climbed above 200. The distribution of food aid has started to reach victims, according to the World Food Programme. A WFP warehouse in Beira was badly damaged, but some food remained intact, and the aid organization is providing cereal to those sheltering at 18 schools and churches in Beira. The WFP Director of Emergency says despite many challenges, they are doing all they can to assist people in need.
We're confronted with severe flooding and cyclone effects, 600,000 people affected, possibly even going up to 1.7 and more million people affected by cyclone and flooding. communication completely broken, infrastructure severely damaged, particularly in the city of Beira, but also all the roads to Beira have been cut off. What WFP is doing at the moment, we're helping with the assessments, we're bringing in food through with airplanes and helicopters, we're bringing down helicopters, and we've started the food distribution for all the people affected in the flood and the cyclone affected areas.
Beira is Mozambique's second largest port and serves as a gateway to landlocked countries in the region. According to local media reports, there are food and fuel shortages in parts of central Mozambique because roads to Beira have been cut off by debris and floodwaters. Now, for more insight on the relief effort and challenges being faced by emergency and aid workers, I'm joined by VOA Zimbabwe reporter Marvelous Nyahuye and VOA Portuguese reporter Amancio Vilanculos. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. Now I want to start with Amancio. First, we were, concerned a lot because of the number of people who lived in the area that had been devastated. What are the updates in terms of actually the actual numbers that have been confirmed of people dead?
At this time in the morning here in Washington, the information that we got from our stringer in the region, it's almost reaching 300 people. And it goes with what the president has said in the beginning of this week, that the number would reach 1,000.
Probably 1,000. In Zimbabwe, we've also seen it's not as hard hit as Mozambique, but actually the area where you originate from has been affected in some serious way. What are you hearing from the ground?
From the ground, the official figure from the ministry is 98 confirmed deaths. Like our reporter on the ground, Columbus Mavinga, was saying 100, but it's expected to also go up to 300. Mm-hmm. And we are also hearing the same thing, that communication is bad and infrastructure has been destroyed, so efforts to get food to the people has really been very bad.
Yeah. So the port has been, we hear, is kind of operational at the moment, but to what extent in terms of how goods can travel from the port to the hinterland where people need this stuff?
According to what we hear, mainly from our stringers, it's not full operational. And this is going to have impact in Zimbabwe and Malawi, since these two countries, including Zambia too, they mostly use the port of Beira to ship goods to the region. At the same time, the port is also being used for relief airports. There's a ship coming from Maputo. People from Maputo are donating goods, and this ship is going to take all these goods to Beira. But of course, it takes more time. And airlines are now fully operational. Ethiopia Airlines and Mozambique Airlines and some other private airlines, they're operational. So this helped families to go and search for their loved one. The big issue at the time is also people don't know where their relatives.
That's a big challenge. Now, Marvelous, in terms of the challenges on the ground, what are some of the things you're hearing that people need so badly, but they're not able to get at the moment?
Right now, the biggest need is food aid, because the households were really washed away. There is no food at the moment, but the president visited Chipinge today and Chimanimani, which were hard hit, and he said nobody would go without food and that the government were rallying together and bringing in food as soon as possible. But we've seen a lot of private individuals, we've seen churches coming in, we've seen the diaspora also making an effort to make sure that food does get to those affected. But like what my colleague here is saying, the roads have been damaged, the infrastructure, there is no communication. So as we speak right now, some people don't even know how many of their relatives have actually passed away. They're still searching for them.
Now, Amancio, earlier on, the government of Mozambique was not quick to announce a state of emergency. What is the state of affairs right now? What is their position?
Now, yesterday they've changed the whole position. The Council of Ministers, actually, they moved to Beira where they're having all the meetings. So they declared it like 3 days of mourning and a state of emergency to respond to this issue. And also in line with what Marva was saying, Mozambican diaspora here in Washington, D.C. and some other areas of the U.S. are starting collecting money using crowd funds to send this money to their relatives. There's also some efforts in parts of Europe where Mozambicans are trying to help others. And also, one of the big issues that civil society in Mozambique is bringing now, they say normally there's some criticism on the West interfering with local politics, but when disasters like this happen, it's always Western-based NGOs coming to help, and then they're asking now, where's China?
Where's China? Where's China? But very quickly, in fact, in terms of the entire region, talk about a bit of the devastation in the other areas, including Malawi. What are you hearing from them?
We're hearing that Malawi is facing similar calamities as Zimbabwe. Their roads have also been destroyed, and the infrastructure has been destroyed. But we've seen other EU coming in saying that they are pledging money. They've pledged 3.5 million towards Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe for relief efforts. And also we've seen Britain pledging £6 million for the three countries. And the United Nations, the US Embassy in Zimbabwe today pledged 100,000 for Zimbabwe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and we hope to, maybe we'll also hear from China. Have a marvelous and Amancio. Thank you very much for joining us today here. Well, that's VOS Marvelous Nyahuye and Amancio Vilankulosh. Now, Pope Francis on Wednesday has expressed his sorrow from the Vatican for African populations devastated by Cyclone Idai.
These days, great floods have sown grief and devastation in various regions of Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. I express my pain and my closeness to those dear populations. I entrust the victims and their families to God's mercy, and I implore comfort and support for those affected by this calamity.
Well, in southern Malawi, government officials are trying to mobilize aid to those affected by the cyclone. More than 900,000 people in 14 districts still need humanitarian aid, including shelter, clean water, and medical supplies. Over 16,000 households have been displaced, according to Reuters.
Very busy day here in Christchurch, New Zealand. 5 days.
Going back to that, we now want to turn to New Zealand as New Zealand police continue to positively try to identify those slain in last Friday's attack at two Christchurch members of the community buried their loved ones on Wednesday and try to move forward with their lives. Viewer Steve Miller reports from Christchurch.
Wednesday was a very busy day here in Christchurch, New Zealand, 5 days after the devastating attack that affected the community and resulted in the death of 50 of its members at two of the mosques last Friday. It was also the first day of many more to come, where those that were slain were laid to rest. Two Syrian refugees, a father and a son, were laid to rest in the city's Memorial Park. The funeral was attended by hundreds, some of which flew in from Invercargill, Iman I spoke to earlier today, to help with families to prepare for the burial ritual, as well as other Muslims from around the country. New Zealand Police Commissioner Mike Bush said that identifying the remaining bodies and getting them to their families so that burials can be performed remains an utmost priority.
The process to reunite the victims with their loved ones. This is, for us, an absolute priority for family reasons, for compassionate reasons, and for cultural reasons.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern was also here in Christchurch today. She visited a local school. Her message to the students was clear. It's okay to grieve.
It is okay to ask for help, even if you weren't directly affected. These things, these images that people are seeing, they're really, really difficult to process.
While the city continues to grapple with the tragedy and discuss how to best move forward, what is striking is the number of tributes and memorials that continue to be erected here at Hagley Park across from the Al Noor Mosque. Adorning one of the fences on the streets adjacent to the park are links of love, paper links woven together with messages of love and support, which is an overwhelming theme that the community has expressed towards the Muslim community. In this letter left by a UK resident, it encourages residents to harness their strength because only love can fight hate. As the names of individuals who were killed becomes known from members of the Muslim community, we're also starting to see individual monuments and tributes crop up here at the park. This one is for Ansi Ali Baba. She was 23 years old and was slain last Friday. Flowers and notes from loved ones adorn this tree as a tribute to her memory. But a consistent theme expressed by members of the community about how closely knit they are perhaps can be best summed up by this poem. It was placed near the intersection near the Al Noor Mosque and concludes this way: "We stand together to ignore the fuss, because in the end, they are us." Steve Miller, VOA News, Christchurch, New Zealand.
Human rights group Amnesty International says 14 civilians were killed during 5 U.S. airstrikes in Somalia in the last 2 years, an allegation the U.S. military strongly denies. For more on the civilian casualty allegation, VOA Pentagon correspondent Calabab joins me live from the military headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. Now, Carla, how did Amnesty International arrive at their conclusion?
Well, Vincent, Amnesty International took a look at the U.S. military record with more than 100 airstrikes in Somalia, no civilian casualties, they claim, and they decided they needed to investigate. They looked at 15 claims of civilian casualties. They ended up throwing out 10, they told me, based on either untruthful sources or information that did not provide evidence to support the claims, and they settled on these 5 cases where 14 civilians were killed. They interviewed dozens of people. They looked at photographs, satellite images, and they came to that conclusion. The U.S. military, however, says that as a matter of policy, it shows restraint when conducting strikes in order to protect civilians. It said that it did its own assessment on all of these strikes except for one, and that it found there were no civilian casualties. It pointed out that Amnesty has its means, but the United States military also has means that are not available outside of the military, like cyber operation intelligence and intercepted communications. And they even claimed in one of these instances that the U.S. military did not strike at all at that location or on that day.
Now, can you share with us some examples of those allegations?
Sure, they gave the 5 examples. There was one that was pretty cut and dry. The military said it was on December 9th, 2018, the most recent one. Amnesty International claims that a farmer who was irrigating his crops was killed during an airstrike. The U.S. military was actually on the ground while al-Shabaab was targeting local Somali partners, and they say that wherever that strike hit, it was hitting people who were fighting and shooting back at the Somali partners. Then there's some other that aren't quite as clear. On November 12, 2017, in Dar es Salaam, Amnesty International claims that 3 farmers were killed. They were irrigating their farms at night, and they say that an airstrike by the United States took them out. The U.S. military says that these 3 farmers were members of al-Shabaab, and the details get a little muddy because the witnesses there say that these farmers were not with al-Shabaab, but al-Shabaab did stage their bodies, and al-Shabaab did take their bodies and call them martyrs before giving them back to the family. So lots of examples like this where sometimes it's not always clear, but one thing is certain, Vincent, the United States military is continuing to conduct these types of attacks. We saw one more airstrike just this week.
Carla, we thank you very much for your excellent reporting as always. That's VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb. Want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook? The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now coming up, how Nigeria is helping boost Gulf of Guinea security. But first, here are Wednesday's headlines. U.S. President Donald Trump is accusing social media outlets, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, of being biased and suggested that the situation needs scrutiny. President Trump, an avid Twitter user, has sided with Congressman David Nunes of California, the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee, who has filed a defamation and negligence suit against Twitter, claiming it enabled a smear campaign against him. In an answer to a reporter at the White House Tuesday, Trump said digital platforms tend to suppress Republican and conservative views. His viewer is Zlatan Sahok.
At the joint conference with Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, Trump said he reaches more than 100 million people through Twitter and other digital platforms, and he's taking advantage of that attention. Data from Facebook and Google's political ad transparency reports, collected by Bully Pulpit Interactive, showed that Trump's re-election campaign has spent nearly twice as much as the entire Democratic field combined on Facebook and Google ads. But on Tuesday, he accused these outlets of being biased.
Things are happening, names are taken off, people aren't getting through. You've heard the same complaints. And it seems to be if they're conservative, if they're Republicans, if they're in a certain group, there's discrimination and big discrimination. I see it absolutely on Twitter and Facebook, which I have also, and others I see.
Earlier Tuesday, Trump's social media director Dan Scavino posted an angry message on Facebook questioning why the network had blocked his comments on his own account. The social media giant apologized, saying that Facebook's algorithm limits the number of identical repetitive posts on a single account in a brief period of time in an attempt to block spam. But Trump accused social platforms, television shows, and the news media in general of siding with the radical left Democrats and said users are aware of it.
The people are smart. The people get it. They'll go through all of that, whatever it is they're fed, and in the end they pull the right lever. It's a very, very dangerous situation. So I agree. I think something has to be looked at very closely.
Nunes on Monday filed a suit against Twitter and 3 individual Twitter users, claiming damages of at least $250 million. Nunes, who was a member of Trump's transmission team, claims that Twitter deliberately failed to close the fake accounts that insulted him. The case is fueling the debate on whether regulating social media would constitute censorship or secure protection from harassment. Zlatan Sahok, VOA News, Washington.
The Nigerian Navy is hosting the 9th edition of the Obangame Express, a maritime exercise designed to improve security and regional cooperation among the Gulf of Guinea nations. This year's event brings together 31 participating countries, including 20 African countries and 11 allied nations. We get more in this report from Channels Television's Loretta Chogo.
The Chief of Training and Operations.
Military personnel of about 30 nations within and outside Africa, as well as 7 organizations, are in Lagos, Nigeria for Bangame Express 2019. The annual engagement aims to improve cooperation among countries in West Africa's Gulf of Guinea region in countering maritime insecurity.
Over the past 9 years, Obangame Express have developed trusts which have resulted in cooperation among naval personnel of Gulf of Guinea nations, the United States, Naval Force Africa, and international partners. I believe this is a laudable achievement. Trust develops further among people when they understand each other's cultures and traditions. I believe this is the wisdom and reason behind the rotational hosting of Bangame Express.
The representative of the Directorate of Intelligence, U.S. Africa Command, explains the impact of the exercise since its inception, as well as the challenges.
Today we face serious challenges at sea, an increase in illegal fishing, an increase in trafficking of weapons, narcotics, and people, the ongoing threat of piracy. And this illicit activity undermines the rule of law, undermines food security, and most importantly, it undermines economic development activities. Our efforts here today will help make this region a safer place for maritime commerce and ultimately help increase prosperity in the region.
The United States government acknowledges Nigeria's commitment to the security exercise.
I want to thank the giant of Africa, Nigeria, for graciously hosting this event. It does not go unnoticed the tremendous effort of your Navy, and by extension, your country, has put into the planning and execution of this major international maritime exercise. So on behalf of the United States government and the ambassador, I want to thank you again.
Out on the waters, participants are carrying out maritime security operations to include vessel query, shipboarding, search and rescue operations, airborne maritime patrol operations and communication drills, among others. These are all aimed at building capacity of the Gulf of Guinea navies to intercept sea criminals.
Well, that report was from Loretta Chogor of Channels Television. Was trending. London's Serpentine Sackler Gallery recently held an exhibition featuring artwork seeking to explore themes of mysticism, rituals and magical resonance with black cultural practices. A Time for New Dreams is part of an ongoing series of short-duration projects that unite Africa and the diaspora, and is said to bring the exhibition was rather curated by Grace Wells Bonner, an artist who likes to use fashion to explore ideas of identity and self-expression. The show highlighted the shrine as a symbolic pathway for exploring various worlds and possibilities. Well, Tel Aviv has taken a small step towards protecting the lives of smartphone zombies. The municipality has installed special LED sidewalk lights at a busy crosswalk to alert distracted pedestrians staring at their phones when they can walk and when they should stop. For now, the pilot program is limited to a single intersection in central Tel Aviv, but the municipality says it will expand the zombies lights if they prove effective. Similar systems have already been used in Australia, Singapore and the Netherlands. And that's what's trending today. And that's our show for today. Thanks a lot for watching and have a good night until we see you again tomorrow.